Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I won't talk too loud for those who want to continue to sleep. My not-so-Swiss watch says that it is now 09:12. So far, so good for Swiss cliches, isn't it? Welcome to the second day of the FIAT IFTA World Conference 2023 in Locarno. A good habit of ours is to have two keynotes every year. We've been checking out on keynotes. We're really searching for a good one, and I think we have found a good one for this edition. And it is a person whom we know very well. It is a person that also is active in our community at least since 2018. That's when the year that I saw him for the first time on a FIAT IFTA. And he is the head of archives here in Switzerland at the French-speaking public broadcaster, RTS. We're talking about Leo Bouchet. You might know that Leo has been a keen follower of all that happens in the AI realm since the earlier years. And he found an approach to introduce many techniques, many approaches, many technologies into his archive in a low threshold way. And Leo's going to talk today to us about how he approached things and what his vision is on the impact that AI will have on the archives and how we should start to tackle things. And his presentation is titled AI, Us, and the Future, Navigating Challenges, Trust, and one of our key values also yesterday with Tom, Transparency. Leo, I welcome you to the stage.
Thank you very much, Brecht. And once upon a time, in media archives, I was told you should always start your speeches like this. It's the only way you get a bit of attention. But it's actually also true that what I want to do this morning with you is just sharing our journey, sharing what we did, how we did it. Brecht was nice enough to say we were somehow frontrunners on some fields, but well, as all of us here in this room, we actually have much more questions than answers and a lot of challenges we face. So yeah, when they asked me, can you do some kind of a keynote? I said, of course, yes, because I'm stupid enough to take that kind of challenges. But also, I said to myself, the real thing I can do is just sharing what we did, how we did it a bit, the key points, and sharing the questions we have on this new path. So, once upon a time in the archives, that's who we were. So this photography was taken in 2005. That was a test, huh? Do you detect fakes? No? Okay. Wasn't seeing any noise at all, so I'm not sure, but probably you guessed. It's not exactly a photography. All the images provided, that's a disclaimer, will not exactly be photographies, but we can talk about that later on. So that was 2005. And it's actually, I think, where and when our somehow AI journey started, oddly enough. That's well before I came into this world. That's my predecessors and the teams. Some of them are still here. And at that time, actually, what we found out is vinegar syndrome. And oddly enough, that's what I want to talk about this AI journey. Because that's the moment when we discovered vinegar syndrome in our 16mm films. That's really when we realized we can actually lose our memory entirely. If we let that go, if we don't do anything, well, we'll lose our memory. And do we want to lose this memory? Not so sure. So my predecessors were good enough to build foundations, to finance, and to start the big work we all know very well about, which is digitalization. To really save this heritage, to save our memories. And actually, at about the same time in different areas of the world, oddly enough, it's about the same period where you see appearing two words, machine learning, in the field, in the research field. Of course, we had absolutely no clue about it at the time, but oddly enough, it's about at the same period. And so we started digitalization, and what we didn't realize at a first glance is that we were actually generating a lot of data. We were transforming our content, our analog content, or even what was already somehow digitized or digital, in a lot of data. And that proved to be later on the source, actually, of any algorithm work. And so that's where we started this journey. With this data generation, we also had, like many of us in this room, we had the conviction that we should start also collecting other kinds of data, not only the films and the videos and the audios that we have. We were also convinced that we should try getting more data from the production. And we all know how tricky and complicated it is, but at that time we managed somehow also to collect all these data. And of course, at about what I call the end of this period, probably 2012, 13, about that, we had digitized quite a lot. We had collected data, and quite naturally, we started using algorithms. The title of this conference is really Blame It on Them, but at that time, we weren't at all in this kind of mindset. We were just thinking, okay, we have a lot of data, what can we do? And so that's when we started to use, for example, speech to text. Oddly enough, at that time, these were somehow classical algorithms, no machine learning at all. It was just semantics, statistics out of the data, and we were lucky because for French-speaking content, they were somehow good enough, and we could use them right away. So that generates quite a lot more data. But still, at that time, we had that working, and that was a cool, good foundation. But interestingly enough, I think we were also somehow seeing like a wall with these classical algorithms. For example, when we tried at that period to extract meaning, like named entities, out of speech-to-text data, frankly, the results weren't good enough at all. We just said, that just doesn't work. And so, at that time also, I recall, that's about now, 2016 somehow, I recall that we made a few predictions at that time. It's always interesting to reflect on the predictions you made in the past. And that time, that only prediction, maybe it's the only time, it was not so far from the truth, I think. And it's not me who made this prediction, it's our general director, I think, Gilles Marchand, who wrote a blog post saying, there is a tsunami coming. And this tsunami is AI. We don't see it yet, but it's coming. Prepare yourself. That was 2016. And I used to really repeat these words a lot from Gilles in different conferences because, we had the feeling it will be coming. But, concretely how? And that's the second period of our story, where honestly, what happened is just that we were extremely lucky. We were lucky because we met a guy Antoine Mercier, who was bored in digital world, I would say. He used to work with the digital guys, the cool guys. But what he was asked to do at that time, that wasn't interesting at all for him. Because actually what he was trained for, just out of university, was this new data stuff, new machine learning stuff. So he came to us and said, hey guys, don't you think we could use this new machine learning stuff in your archives? So that was pure luck. But of course, we also had to accept that. And that was a conscious decision saying, okay, there is this guy coming, he's proposing that, we don't have any any knowledge about that, but we know we are kind of stuck with the current versions of the algorithms. He's offering something else, yes, let's try it. Let's dig into it, and let's try it. So that's what we did. And of course, now it's history, so we all know what happens next, but the way we started to feel at that period is a bit like we discovered new superpowers. That's why I've put this extremely precise photography of that period. We felt like we had new powers, like we could answer questions. Okay, can you find this particular building? Can you find every still image we have in our videos? And the answer was, oh, maybe actually we can. Now, with this new algorithm stuff, with this new machine learning data we extract, we can actually compare images by images. And if we provide a photo of a building, you can actually extract all the videos, instances that we have in our archives. And that's something we couldn't do before. So yeah, cool, new superpower. Also, a guy coming to us saying, guys, could you find video footages of this guy? He's now newly appointed head of Ferrari. He used to be a mechanic. You should have images from him. Yeah, okay, but we don't have any metadata. Our thesaurus says it's not a public figure. So we don't have any metadata about this. But yes, we actually can find images from him. We use our very old, respected thesaurus to now make a new entry in it, saying now it's a public face. Now give me a few pictures of him. I'll build a profile. And yes, with the algorithms we have, we can then find all the footages we have in our archives about him. And so, cool, new superpowers. Well, but at the same time, we figured out somehow with new superpowers, you also have new super challenges, new super problems, tough ones. Like, for example, ethical, legal ones. How do you handle the GDPR stuff? How do you really think it's possible you can actually keep these data about these people? We also had, of course, to figure out a path here. The way we did it is, we discussed with legal, and once again, we were somehow lucky to have a legal department saying, okay, but what you do is actually not so different than what we used to do. We just select who is a public personality, and you only store data about the people we think are public enough to somehow have documentation on them. And with that in mind, with these same ethical guidelines we used to use in the past, we had a green light to keep this data about these people also, this data that were extracted. And of course, the superpower here is that it completely changes the scale. It's really, really much, that's really not something you can do manually to get all this data and all this information out of your systems. But but with the same mindset that we used to use when we described images. So these were superpowers, but the super challenge also that we saw coming at the time is that it will somehow change the way we work. That's a conviction we had quite early, and I guess we still have all of us here in this room. And so that's also the time, at that period, about 2018, where we decided we needed also some kind of framework for the people working in the archives to be able to adapt to these changes that we don't really, or we didn't, and we still don't really understand fully, but we know they are coming. We don't know at which pace exactly. We didn't know exactly when these changes will come, but they will be coming. So we adopted some kind of framework, holacracy, to be able to adapt ourselves, to also adapt our organization, our structures to these changes much more easily. And yeah, that's what we did a bit at this period. And another challenge I want to mention, of course, is we detected quite early that there are quality problems, there are quality issues with this data. But as a quick side note on this, we've discussed that a bit with my colleagues also, and discussing together, we found out, well, about this quality thing, or about all these biases. That's true that it's a problem. But don't you remember this guy back in the old day? In the old days, I think she was a she, I was told just yesterday night. She used to only archive stuff when it was right-wing parties speaking. Anything from the left, don't archive. Anything from the right, archive. We had someone like this in our archives. And I'm quite sure that if you ask yourself and your teams, were we actually unbiased in the past, at every time period? So yeah, we do have quality problems with these algorithms, that's for sure. We have to solve them, we have to sort it out. But to be honest, we have to sort that problem at a much larger scale, also at a human level. And it's not that easy. It wasn't easy, it isn't easy now. It will not be easy in the future, I think. So that was but still it was like a bit the golden rush period for us, discovering all these new superpowers and new superpowers and super challenges. Very interesting, very passionate. All these changes, cool. But then the outside world somehow, and that was about a year ago, came into play and say, guys, that's very funny and sympathetic at what you're doing, but now we'll show to you that it's changing much faster than you think. And to take an example in that period, that's of course the apparition of all this generative ChatGPT-esque stuff. And that's really the point where we used to have discussions together in the team saying, okay, guys, yeah, probably that what we do, this image description thing, we have this algorithm, it generates a lot of more work to control this data, that's a shift of the work, but still, when we describe these images that way, maybe AI will do it in the future, but we don't know when, etc., etc. All these discussions now, well, we somehow still have them, yeah. But honestly, for me, what changed with these guys coming is I don't think there is any more debate now, actually. I know among us there are a lot of people here thinking, yeah, but can these tools actually, for example, describe that kind of concept as good as us? yeah, maybe. Honestly, when I hear that, that makes me think of the chess players when they were looking at the pre-Deep Blue stuff, for example. They said, yeah, they will never achieve that. Now, if you are in the chess a bit, you see that grandmasters, they often look at AI guys playing together and they say, wow, that's so beautiful. I don't understand at all why it put that move on. They are way, way, way above us, and that's a fact. And I think that's coming. I always hear, oh, but that's for chess, that's the real closed world. It will never happen outside of that environment. Yeah, like for the self-driving cars, right? It will never happen, except in San Francisco today. It's here. And I think that's where maybe the most difficult challenge we have now is that what I've seen during that year is we have doubts in the past, we have little fears, but last year, honestly, I've started to see panic. I've seen journalists panicking. Really, honestly. They've said, they understood, oh, maybe us, we are not these archive guys, we are journalists. We really bring value because we know how to tell a story, and that's really something a machine will never do. Well, not that sure. And so I saw panic all over our organization. What really changed this year is that it was somehow this AI stuff that will change with the really somehow low-value jobs. Sometimes we are described. I don't think at all that we are a low-value job, but we have some maybe, and we were described like this. But now everyone is panicking, saying, okay, but it actually can affect me, and it will. And so this game-changing environment, that really, I think, changed the game, especially on the level of fear you have in your teams, in our organization. And that's actually a new challenge. And of course, we have others. We've all discussed this week, and we'll continue discussing it, about the hallucinations. That's also something, that's a tough one. That's right. These models actually somehow hallucinate the large language model. And that's actually, is it a surprise? Because the way they are built, they are built as a somehow replication of how our brains work. And don't we hallucinate a bit? We tend to think we are these extremely professional guys who do the right stuff all the time about the truth. Are we that sure? Once again, yesterday, a colleague of mine told a story. It's not really corroborated yet. It's only once or so for journalists in the room. It's not reliable. You cannot publish it right now. But still, a colleague said to me two things. One, I saw a documentalist actually describing colors in clothing in a black and white picture we have. I said, okay. Are you sure? He said, yes, I don't have the second source yet, but I will find out and will tell you later on. Another thing he said quite clearly, and that was a bit more consensual, said, guys, right now, if you put two documentalists in a room and ask them, train guys, 6-month training at least to how we describe images in our media archives. You put two different ones describing the same image, the same footage. You'll have two different descriptions. Guaranteed. There's absolutely no chance at all that you will get the exact same output. So we have to deal with these hallucinating problems, especially now in this kind of early days of this large language model, where they have kind of short memories, but they are built in the same way as us, and so they tend to do stuff that we don't expect from a machine to do, but that we humans do quite often. Just to be a bit deeper in that, that's how actually these machines answers like we answer, in my opinion, when we are asked about something. Like, did you see this? What did you see in this event, this bombing in Jerusalem, when you had to describe this footage? What did you see? I saw that guy with the leg, etc. Actually, is that really stored here? Or is it a reconstruction based on small elements we get back from our internal memory? And how do we distinguish this? Actually, you'll have a lot of scientific literature on that. You know, the problem of the witnesses in the judicial world. You cannot trust a witness. Every cop can say that to you. Every judge, every lawyer will say that to you. You cannot trust an eyewitness at all. Eyewitnesses build stuff up all the time. They are sure that guy wore like a black shirt. It was actually yellow. It happens all the time. So yes, that's a big problem. That's a big issue. That's a complex one, and we have to tackle it. But actually, I think it's kind of an old one. That's the way we are. And actually, it's even more frightening, because that means the machines really mimic somehow how we function. And the closer it gets, the more frightening it is, honestly. Because they also have some kind of superpowers. Because I don't know any human in the room here or anywhere else in the world who read everything, who read every available publicly open source. Yeah, it's a challenging time. Okay, but what do we do now with these fears? What we do also with this lack of transparency? Do we ended up here? Real answer, I don't know. I think, in general, the human species, we are not that good at predicting the future. So I have absolutely no clue on what will happen now. Really sorry about that. But I have a few convictions. So I can share them with you, but please, these are my personal views. Just take them as is, and we'll open that for discussion. And yeah, I don't have the answers. That's just my convictions, personal ones. One is that we have to provide our teams frameworks that empower them. But by empowerment, I mean frameworks that empower trust more than fear, that make ourselves more confident than like panicking. And that's really very important, I think. And we have to implement frameworks that also embrace the diversity in our teams, because we all have, and that room is an example of that, but everywhere I went and visit in any media archive, I've seen a lot of diversity. What I mean by that is I've seen a lot of different people with different perspectives, with really strong opinion, with really big knowledge in very multiple different areas. I think that's a bit of who we are. I don't know, it's maybe based on the fact that how we came up in the archives. There are a lot of different paths to come up here in the stage. That's really different ways. And so we have a lot of diversity. And I think one of the key issues for this very, very complex matters that come to us now is that we do not fight that, but we use that as a strength. we embrace that diversity, to have all this to understand all these perspectives and apply them to the challenges we have, to find the right solutions with all these perspectives. And of course, we have to embrace frameworks that adapt, that are able to adapt. That's where, in general, I would say, I'd love that we have much more media archive, much more heritage institutions with purpose-driven organization. Because that's really, that's also what Tom said. We have to be, yesterday, that's what, we have to be somehow motivated by a great purpose, like a contribution to democracy, if you want. The one we chose internally is really enlighten the archives, making them available to the public, put the public at the center of reflection, really make them shine, make our audiovisual archive shine in our region. That's our purpose. But then, with this purpose-driven organization, I think we must have structures behind them that adapt, that are able to adapt to change. There are several frameworks for that. We can discuss that later if you want. But I think we have to have these key elements to be able to cope with these changes coming very quickly. And of course, now together as a community, I think we have to find the proper, not the solutions, because these problems, I don't know who said that when the problem is highly complex, there is some kind of a proof that you can't have a simple solution. It will be complex solutions, multiple solutions. So I would not call them solutions, I would call them paths. I think we must find together paths to, I don't know, for example, to be a source for reliable data sets. Why not? Why can't we, as media archives, a source for reliable data sets? Or reliable, at least, ones where we actually can document the biases in them? That's one path. Another one is, can we be much more open? Can we be much closer to our public, our stakeholders, much more collaborative with them? Can we organize events in the field with the archives? That's something a lot of us do already, but can we do it more? Because oddly enough, I think that's some kind of an answer to these challenges, as to be close to what the people want and just keep that conversation going. Of course, empowering a bit or favorizing trust in that area. And yeah, the last one was also a colleague of mine yesterday who told me, can't we be explorers? Can't media archivists be the new explorers of these new worlds? These new big, immense worlds that actually these tools, this data we have made emerge collectively as humankind. These are huge places. Can't we be the new explorers in that area? And I will leave you with that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leo, for a few intriguing thoughts. I do think we have time for a few questions, and I think the subject matter itself might suscitate a few. I have a bit of light in my own eyes, and so make yourself very clear if you have questions. Yes, we have one over there. I think it's Michel, if I...
Thank you, Leo. It was very good and enlightening. Could you mentioned your challenge in terms of organization, changing the organization to make me more flexible. I guess people will call that agile today. Can you comment on how you look for the future in terms of organization into your own institution, in terms of how do you develop this agility? You also speak about the need to put people from different perspectives. I watch very often your little stories about the past history in the mountains, etc. And I was thinking that could be linking to a lot of other scientific analysis about the way people were living before, etc. So how are you looking about the future of your organization?
Once again, that's really a conviction, not a thought, that, yeah, we somehow need our structures to be much more flexible, agile, and not just because it's fancy, à la mode, you know, words, more because change is happening, and the key I found, and the one I talked about today, is not the model itself, because you don't really care about which model you use, is really to have this kind of North Star, you know, that on each and every organization has to have, I think, a kind of North Star where it wants to go. And that somehow must not change every day, you know, or every week, or because every new technology. That's really our long-term implementation, to have a purpose and to have purposes really clearly stated in every organization, and not the legal ones, the ones we can relate to. So that's one key element. And yeah, of course, then behind the scene, you have to have somehow the structures that can evolve when you discover new stuff you want to do, to go through that purpose. So I think that used to be a key, that's still a key today, and that's still a big problem in a lot of institutions I see, even around me within a Sergey group. Yeah, this kind of old institutions we are, right, kind of static ones, who built some kind of administration around their structures, that actually there is, in my opinion, there is some kind of price to not change. There is like a bonus. If you don't change, that's more acceptable than if you do. And as long as you have that in your organization, as a system, I think you are in trouble in these times coming, at the pace they are coming. That's my conviction.
There's another question coming up from Robert.
Thank you. Robert Fischer, Südwestrundfunk. I was amazed to hear that you introduced for the team, I think, if I understand right, the holacracy principle. We made at SWR a complete agile transformation, and it was perceived as the right way, but it was also stress for the people. The basic is that everyone is responsible for himself and his distribution of work. So I'm really, really amazed to hear that you had the fears, not the panic, but the fears, and a staff who must change, plus, or maybe it was a bonus, plus the changing to be responsible for yourself. So maybe you could give a little word on the good points, and maybe if there were some little pains.
Well, yeah, hours of pain. Yeah, it wasn't at all an easy ride, of course. It wasn't at all. And it still isn't, in many ways, But these 2 points you mentioned, they really came together somehow. Yeah, because you can't have any more responsibility at all if you are afraid of losing your job. That's a fact. If you are just afraid, it's the only thing you have is fear that you will disappear in work way. You can't think about change. You can't think about great purpose in life, or there's no way. So you somehow have to build a foundation for a bit more trust. It's relative, you know. It's not an absolute trust in everything. It's just a bit more trust than yesterday. And yeah, I've mentioned several times today that we also were and are extremely lucky, because even though, as all of us here, we had to make cuts in the budgets, we had to let people go in different ways, etc. So that was and is still, it's hard in any kind of structure and organization. So we had these challenges also. But we were lucky enough to, well, if I actually count, basically we are the same number of people now than we used to be, but that's not because we didn't change. We change a lot, and there are people retiring that we just don't replace at all at the same jobs. It's the different job. But I think one key element is that we were lucky enough to be able to build trust that we'll somehow pilot that in-house ourselves. We'll lead that transformation. There will be no external force saying us, okay, because that's my fear. That used to be my fear, and it's always that, because if you have someone saying, okay, but how do you make like 2 million down in cost reduction in that organization, and you have an external consultant coming in and say, okay, that's so easy, you just cut these jobs out. And so we try to do the opposite, saying, okay, we are not here to cut jobs out. We are here to have everyone on board in this new boat. We don't know the shape of the boat. It's a different one. It's complex. And we'll try to get everybody in. And so we used holacracy as a framework to somehow have that trust. But yeah, you can talk to the people here, a few of them in my teams, and they will tell you all the challenges we faced. There are many.
I do see at least one hand in the middle over there. Checking out for others as well.
Andrea Scaronari from Mediaset, Italy. You said that two different documentalists should describe the same scene, the same image in two different ways. And I agree, I totally agree. It's my experience, my personal experience as well as archivist. Don't you think that two different AI tools, or even the same AI tools but with different training, different machine learning, could be the same? And in your opinion, will the day come when we'll have a sort of AI tools standard, international standard, just to have a more coherent and more unique way to work on archives, on images, and especially documentation, verbal documentation of images?
So the first part of the question, definitely yes. That's not even an opinion, that's a fact. Even different versions of the same tool produce different outputs. That's the way it is in software. We just get used to it. That's it. Really, for the first part, yeah, every version of every tool, every different tool, they will somehow produce different outputs, at least occasionally, if not structurally and all the time. So yeah, definitely that will happen. It's the same. That's what I said about these systems being more and more like we are. We tend to forget that we are like this also. When you speak, you don't say the same thing as I do, and that's exactly the same. But for the second part, do we need some kind of standards, regulation, etc.? Actually, yes, I think it's complex in the sense that these tools evolve much, much faster than every possible standard we can implement. But I don't think that means we shouldn't have them, actually. That's maybe the only human way at that time to somehow, we've, as an example, in our organization, we've created a role, which name is Rules and Principles for IA. And now this role has to enforce them and write them. And standards. I think they are needed, and I think we as a community could be also, that's maybe a new path, being the source for all the standards. Also, our general director had the idea that we could be kind of a certification agency somehow of these tools. And in many ways, we have all the data, the skill sets, and maybe the will to do it. So that's a new path.
Thank you.
Thank you for these questions. It just provoked me the thought, like, should we introduce a field in our metadata models, like this clip has been annotated with this algorithm at this point, something like that, and then we go to Theo.
But honestly, Brecht, I think we should already have that since years. When I come into this archive world, one of the first questions I ask is, why don't we have our own internal systems as precise as Wikipedia, for example, on who did what and what? With Wikipedia, you know exactly who modified what, and you keep the version history forever. Why don't we have this on our systems? That's actually needed. And it's even more needed now that we have not only humans modifying this data. We need to know when and how, and at which timestamp, and which version of which software, or which version of which human, actually modified that data.
I just wanted to thank you very much, Leo, for this very interesting proposals, and also do a sort of testimonial. I think I know Leo now since 15 years, something like that, 10 years. We work together in the national group of the archives, and I would like really to testimony what he's saying here. We live that, and we see that very clearly, that you cannot only put on new technical things, build on technical approaches, without also new ways of thinking and organizing the team. And I have to say, when after time, he began to work with his new approaches, when I visited his team at Geneva, and even every day or every month, so when I have to do with people who are working there, my impression is very, it's something new. People there understand that they have responsibilities, and I feel very much the approach of, yes, we try, even if we are not absolutely sure that we can realize, and for me, the technical things, yes, that's interesting, but much more the new approaches, and I think really today we can be grateful that you presented that.
Well, thank you very much, Theo, but you must remember you are completely biased. So thank you. But
can we give Leo a round of applause, please? Thank you.